He's out of Iowa. They're pulling him out of Iowa. Thank goodness. That's where Casale was. He was in,
Is that right?
he was playing for the AAA Cubs team in Iowa.
Okay.
Kurt Casale. He's the catcher. He was a Giant in 21. So yeah, he was there yesterday. They woke him up and said, "Get on a plane."
Okay. Well, all right. Well, welcome everyone for the May meeting of the Policing Commission of the City of Albany. It is Thursday, May 16, 2024, at 7 o'clock. And so we are live. We'll begin with the call to order, which has just happened. And I guess next is roll call. Do you want to?
Roll call. So Member Dupuy is absent. Member Johns?
Here.
Member Lee?
Here.
Member Downs?
Here.
Member Locke is absent. Member McQuaid?
Here.
And Member Yu is absent.
Okay.
You have 4, so that's a quorum.
Thank you so much. I think I was trying to remember who hasn't done the land acknowledgement, and I think it was a physician heal thyself. I think I managed to not be picked. So if someone would want to do it, I'm glad to, but I don't want to push it on somebody else if I haven't done it yet.
I'm happy to.
Okay, go for it.
The City of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lashon. We acknowledge that the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions which have transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The City of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home.
Thank you, Commissioner Lee. And do we need to update to reflect we have one more commissioner than when we did roll call?
In case anyone's listening but can't see,
Yes.
Member
Here.
There we go. Welcome. Terrific. Next, item 2 is the approval of minutes from the April 18th meeting. The minutes are attached to the agenda for this meeting. Give people a chance.
I'll move approval.
We have a move to approve. Is there a second?
A second.
Second. Is there discussion? All right. Hearing none. We don't need to take public comment for approving minutes. Okay. Do you want to?
I'll go ahead and take the vote. Member Dupuy?
Yes.
Member Johns? Member Lee?
Yes.
Member Downs?
Yes.
Member Locke is absent. Member McQuaid?
Yes.
Member Yu is absent.
Okay, thank you. Item 3 on our agenda is public comment for persons desiring to address the commission on policing-related items not on the agenda. Please note each speaker is limited up to 3 minutes. The Brown Act limits the advisory body's ability to take and/or discuss items that are not on the agenda. Therefore, such items may be referred to staff for comment or for a future agenda. We don't have anyone in person, so I'll turn over to you, Luke, for if there's anyone virtually.
There's literally nobody virtual either this time.
Okay.
You can move right along.
All right. So item 4 is announcements, staff and commission member announcements. You want to do staff first and then take commission?
Yeah, I don't have any announcements for this meeting.
Okay. All right, commission member announcements.
I was just going to say that I got online and I watched last meeting since I wasn't here for it. And there was a presentation by the police, and I also watched the city council meeting this month. And I believe it was the same presentation they did at the city council. And I believe that they made a vote on it and passed it. So that's how I remember it anyway. Just wanted to let you guys know what had happened.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. Any other commissioner announcements? Commissioner McQuaid.
I'll just mention this is National Police Week, and I think as such should be recognized by the commission.
Okay. Is the announcement appropriate recognition, or were you seeking something else?
No, that's
okay,
fine.
I just wanted to make sure I didn't misunderstand. Okay. Anything else? Any other commissioner announcements? Okay. Still okay on no public comment. All right. Item 5 is informational report. We have attached as 5-1 the Police Department Monthly Dashboard for March, which is 1 page, and then for April, which is technically 5 pages, but does have have 1 line on a 2nd page, which I didn't at first note. So just passing on in case any of you also did not. So you want to take a minute on that, and then we can have any discussion from here or anything that it raises that we'd like to consider for when we get to the item for commissioner suggestions for future agendas. One item that I wanted to note is that on page 2 of the April dashboard, it does list a formal complaint, which is, I think, the first since that I can recall, at least since we've had the dashboards, and the first of the calendar year. And so I wanted to inquire about whether, we'll get information on that or what the timeline or process is.
Yeah, I was informed that that is not a legally public complaint, so it's not, the department's not obligated to pass it along. I'm not sure of the details of that. I can ask the chief a little bit more about it if you guys are curious.
And,
But it's not available at this point.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Lee, I think you said something.
yeah, I was just going to ask for clarification on what exactly the criteria for what is publicly illegal. I'm just not super familiar with that.
I will have to look into that.
We could get, if that question could be included, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. I think we were aware of the distinctions when, of what's permissible to state about personnel issues, but it sounds like this is a different threshold. So I think that would be helpful. Other than that, I didn't notice any notable swings, other than that March had an unusual number of patrol citations. But anything else that jumped out or that people want to have noted or wish to discuss among us?
As far as the citations go, Chief Geisberger gave me a little bit of information about that. It appears that there were some parking issues around the schools in March, which led to more citations being issued. And that sort of went back to its usual sort of status quo in April, which is why it went down again. So Chief's view is that that's probably what explains the difference.
All right, I appreciate that. Glad it was not just a rash of terrible driving. Other than that, to me, many of them looked in a sort of routine margin of variation. Anything anyone noted or would like to discuss? Okay. We ready to move along? Item 6 is presentations, which I don't believe we have any. Okay.
Yeah, none this month.
Item 7 is discussion and possible action on matters related to the following items. And on 7-1, subcommittee update. And I do believe we have an update. Do one of you all want to start? And so we don't hear my voice the whole time.
So at our meeting last month with Chief Geisberger, he very helpfully pointed us to the Municipal Resources Group, or MRG. And they're the group that the department has looked to in the past for third-party or independent investigations into complaints or misconduct. So we met recently with a representative who basically walked us through their investigation process. So that included basically the 2 types of investigations that they do, and I'm pulling up my notes here. So the 2 types included finding policy violations, like did that occur, and if something did occur, conduct was found to have occurred, is there a policy in particular? So there's the application of the policy. Did that violate the policy? So that's one type. The other type is like purely fact-finding. What were the circumstances? Who was there? Who said what? And a judgment is not a part of that report. So essentially, the process includes working with a police department liaison to set up interviews and comb through evidence before a report is put together. And that was very helpful and very informative for us to hear how these sorts of things have been handled by the department in the past and how these investigations typically go.
Do you have some, thank you, Commissioner Lee. Commissioner Johns, do you have anything you want to add, or if not? No. Okay. Yeah, I thought it was, extremely helpful. The person that we spoke to has worked with Albany and did, speak highly of the department and of the chief. The person has extensive background in law enforcement and is also a JD. And I thought he talked pretty wide-ranging ways about, the ways that investigations can work and also how they can go awry. And so some of the things that he told us that we might not all know is generally, although there is one exception, a general compulsion to speak to a investigator at risk of losing their job, because I think that was a question we had about how to deal with that. And so in that sense that he said that he's often able to collect a lot of information relatively quickly. He's never asked to recommend an outcome, but those two distinctions the distinction that Commissioner Lee mentioned, he was interested in. He thought that some departments had been shifting toward fact-finding because they believe it's not reportable under SB 2. And so that if they ask for a finding of policy violation, then they would have to report it to the State Department of Justice, the State Attorney General's office. And that some of them, he thinks that there's been a notable shift from asking him to do finding a policy violation to fact-finding. And his suspicion is that's because departments don't want to have to report his findings to the Attorney General. So that was something I thought that was interesting to keep our eyes on. A couple of things that he pointed to, he talked about moments when he has received, not from Albany, when he has received pressure, either directly from departments or via the partners, that most of the investigators appear to be independent contractors, and that the partners of the firm have sometimes called to relay them. And he said his experience, his vision is as somebody who's, partly retired, is then assign somebody else. And so I asked him, what are the safeguards for, not, if there's an investigator who is more amenable to that. And he was actually pretty skeptical. He said, it is hard to have a system that is safeguarded against that unless you have a person in the receiving line who is willing to say, then don't hire me again. And that the pressure on the system can be existent, and that there have been requests made to him to change reports and things like that when he has submitted drafts. So he was interestingly, sort of frank about the challenge of, I said, okay, so you're great, what happens, you retire? And I thought he was fairly frank about saying that's a little bit of a wild card, that a lot can rest not just on the company you contract with, but who their independent contractor is and their own feeling of independence. We also talked about, processes, a couple of questions that I came out of it interested in, in terms of the application, is one stage is how a decision is made of whether to refer, right, in terms of what we might contemplate as a subcommittee and as a commission of how do we understand the process of when a decision is made to make a reference, and, what is the point of decision there. A second is how information on the report is, handled after the referral. He said in his case, he has been willing to speak to bodies, city councils or others. He said it's relatively rare, that he receives that request, and he had his own speculation of why that is. He prepares an executive summary that is shareable, though he said that that's so general, it's often not of that much help to other bodies. And so his report to the department, would be something that would be confidential. He said, unfortunately, the move to the executive summary drives out so much information, it's very difficult to, for someone else to evaluate. And so I think that's another question of once a report comes back of how will the commission or the council, be able to get enough information to assess it. And then a third issue I did come out with, I came out with a lot of personal, engagement and satisfaction with him as an investigator. And also with a lot of uncertainty about how replicable that is based on his own uncertainty of how replicable it is and his own confidence that there were partnerships out there that were, more amenable to making changes. So I think that that's a challenge, that if we're talking about trying to build, future-proof a system in which, it works, beyond a transition at any level, whether it's an investigator, it's the leadership of a department, of how do we understand that? And he thought that was quite difficult to assess from outside or even from inside. So, those are the issues that I came out wrestling with. Anything else, Commissioner Johns, before we turn over for questions or discussion?
No.
Open for questions or discussion?
Just sort of as an aside, the one thing I would request is we get written copies in advance of your reports. It's a great report, but I'd like to sort of digest it over time. Not
Okay.
over time, but
Yeah.
look back on it, or even have been more prepared tonight to come with questions.
Sure. Absolutely. I think that's a good suggestion. Thank you.
And for future meetings, we can backlog, so include
Yeah.
the notes from here and then.
Great, thank you.
Next report, yeah.
I was just going to ask, I think after your first subcommittee meeting, you came with sort of a first draft of your ideas for how to qualify a potential investigator or someone to deal with these things. Have you guys made any amendments or edits to that document yet, or are you still waiting to gather more information before you make any changes?
Yeah, I think we wanted to hear we heard from the chief and from commissioners that feedback, and we wanted to incorporate that. We also wanted to, from the chief's meeting, we then learned about the municipal resources group, wanted to talk to them, and hopefully next to city staff, and then before we come back with a second draft or another report.
I just want to thank you guys for your hard work. I appreciate you.
Thank you. And we appreciate the help of the chief and of Luke in making the connection to MRG and to the specific investigator, as he was extremely helpful. Any other discussion? Okay. Thank you all. And no public comment.
We do have
Okay.
someone in the virtual audience, so we'll give them a chance to pipe up if they want. I think we can move on.
Okay. Item 8 is future agenda items. Commissioners announce requests for future agenda items. So I think if I recall last time, we had suggestions of potential reports that we'd like in the future. And, that's certainly a viable option for future agenda items or anything else that you'd like to suggest.
Well, I think for a future agenda item, I would just like to dig in more to that one formal complaint that's on our dashboard and see what we can find out about that. And if we can't get any information on it, I would like to know why that is as well, have a better understanding.
So I saw that at the most recent, I saw that the mobile crisis team was brought up at the most recent city council meeting. specifically with regards to its funding through the COPS grant. I was really happy to see that at around the same time that this commission started, the pilot program for the mobile crisis team also started. So I'd actually be really interested in hearing a presentation on it at a meeting in the near future to hear about how it's going in general, positives and challenges, and what there is that we, as a commission, policing commission, can contribute to solving any potential problems that have been encountered thus far. So yeah, presentation on mobile crisis team. I'd also be interested in hearing presentation on the body cameras. On my ride-along a couple months ago, towards the beginning of this, I did hear about the new technology and how Albany was a fairly early adopter. And also, there were some areas for improvement, including in battery life. I know that's like not up to this department necessarily. That's like up to acquiring new technology if it exists yet. But in addition to that, like with my question earlier about what exactly constitutes something that's legally public, I'd like to hear about what constitutes the process for releasing body cam data, should that be requested. So something on the legality and the process of that, something I'm interested in.
Are there requests on agenda items? No. I think I may have mentioned this last month, but if not, I'll do it now. I think when the subcommittee met with the chief about how he has worked with complaints, we had discussed with him about making the presentation to the entire commission. I hope and believe we correctly reported our understanding of what he said. But I think it's also helpful for the commission to hear from him about just the thought process he has as a complaint comes in about when to make an outside referral, as well as about selection criteria, and anything else that the commission might be interested in hearing about. So I think this expands in some ways off Commissioner Dupuy's question about the individual complaint in April, but also to understand the broader process. Anything else on future agenda items? You're good, Commissioner Lee. You're good, Commissioner Johns. Okay, I think, and do we need to open for public comment?
Yeah, so we have a couple attendees in the virtual audience. They can have a chance to raise their hands if they want. Not seeing any hands go up.
Okay.
All right, let's move on.
All right, then with that, we move to agenda item 9, which is a reminder of our next meeting, which is June 20th, 2024, at 7 p.m., same time and place. And then, am I right? I know I've got it in my calendar, but just to make sure we're all on the same page, then we meet in July, but not in August. Is that right, Luke?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and once again, I will be traveling in June for work. However, I would like to try and figure out how I could, attend virtually. I know we talked about that way in the beginning, but I can't remember what I need to do. So I'll send you an email and try and get some clarification on that.
Just remind me and we can walk you through the process.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
All right, thank you. All right, and with that, then we come to item 10, adjournment.
Adjourned at 7:24. A little bit of a light agenda this month, but just for the future reference, Chief Geisberger did say that he's hoping to have the department's in-house autism awareness trainer come and do a presentation next month. It's not for sure yet, but that's a possibility, and I'll get back to him about the future agenda items you're mentioning and see what we can do with those. All right. Yep. All right.